Hey beloved, Krista Pettiford here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk about the lessons I learned in 2024. I always say that every season, no matter how difficult, discouraging, or delightful and promising, every season has its own beauty, blessings, purpose, and lessons. We just have to learn to ask the right questions and see things from God's perspective. And so I hope that this video encourages you and helps you take some time to look back over your year in review 2024 as we come to a close of this year and we enter into 2025, which is like a fresh start and a new season. Although many things will continue as they were, new years are new seasons, and it's good to reflect on our past year as we move into the new year. So I want to share 10 lessons that I've learned in 2024 as a empty nester mom of 4 who is just hit my 50s. I just turned, I turned 51 in May, and I'll be 52 next year. So I am just now hitting my 50s. And so there are things I have learned, and I want to focus on the things I've learned as a follower of Christ and following Christ through every season of life. And in particular, this season of midlife as an empty nester, where things have not turned out the way I thought they would, and how I'm embracing that and making the most of it. And so if you're an empty nester over 40 or 50, then this video you'll probably identify with. But I think that whatever age you're in, whatever season you've come through, praise God, we made it through 2024. And I hope that there's something that you can identify with too. And again, I hope that you will take some time to reflect on your year and look at the lessons that you've learned, but also the beauty, the blessings, and the purpose. What was the purpose? What was the purpose? That purpose that you could see that God did things in your life in 2024, even things that he worked out that you didn't know he was going to work out, but it was purposeful. What was purposeful? What was connected to your purpose? What tapped into your purpose and directed you towards your purpose? What was the most beautiful things that you experienced in 2024? What was the beauty, blessings? What were the blessings that God gave you? What were the blessings? Waking up every day, our health is a blessing, but what are some things that you can look back and reflect on? Maybe they're the things that you didn't think were blessings at first, when you first started going through them. I don't know, but I would love to learn more about what your beauty, blessings, purpose, and or lessons were in 2024. I'm going to share mine. And again, these are reflected through the lens of following Christ through every season of life. And so what I learned is that, number one, following Jesus is easier said than done. And I think this is something that we all learn as we follow Christ. He talks about counting the cost. And as we get older and or as I've gotten older and been faced with many things, life not actually turning out the way I wanted it to, and I learning how to embrace this season and do new things, it's not harder to follow Christ, but it's not as easy as it seems. Let me say it that way. Some days it's not easy as it seems to give up the thing that I wanted to do, to go after and continue to say yes to the Lord. So this year has been a real season of submitting to God the things that I wanted, my plans for his plans, my purpose for his purpose. And that's not always easy as it is to say. It's not easy to do. It's not as easy to do as it is to say. We can say, I'm going to follow Christ, I'm going to follow Christ no matter the cost. But when for certain things come up in our lives and we have to make a choice, that's where the rubber meets the road. And it's difficult. And sometimes well, I'll just talk about myself, look back and like, God, can I please do that? And it's like, no, you have to follow me. You have to give up those things if you're going to continue to follow me. Whatever it is, a plan, a dream, whatever I thought it was going to be, a grudge, whatever it is between me and Christ. Sometimes it was difficult this year going through different things, and even worries and concerns that were keeping me, because worry is not faith. And so I had to give that up. The other thing that I learned, maybe it's connected, but number 2 is following Jesus does not guarantee a perfect life free of trouble, right? And so I learned that again, and this is something that I have learned before, but following Jesus has not guaranteed me a life of trouble-free or a perfect life. And I've had to be okay with that. And I've had to come to terms with that. And I think in this year, this 2024, I've really learned to be okay with that and embrace life. Because when I was younger, I had a vision of how I thought my life would turn out. And so in the past maybe decade or so, really, I've had to grab on. You think you would get over it, but I really had to struggle and grapple with the fact that no matter how much I prayed or tried or did things, certain things were just I was just going to have to trust God through certain seasons and certain circumstances, and that I could not control them, and that I can enjoy life even if my life is not perfect, even in the midst of trials and testings and trouble, that there is a place in Christ where I can find joy, where the joy of the Lord is my strength. It's easier to say that when everything is going well, or when your boat is not really being rocked and there's no storms, or there's a slight storm, a little rain, but when life sucker punches you and everything falls apart, it's harder to trust God, because how is he going to put this all back together? What is my faith? What happened here? And how do I keep following Jesus forward when I feel like I can't get up and I can't even move on? And so I have learned to do that. And I think that's not something new to this past year, but it's something that I was again challenged in, and it's been stretching my faith and learning to be at peace when there are storms in life. And so, which leads me to number 3, following Jesus when it feels like he let you down, which reminds me of the disciples. And after he died, and they thought he was coming to be a king and reign in this certain way as a human king. And Jesus was coming to die on a cross for the sins of the world. And his kingdom is not of this world. And oftentimes we think that when we follow Jesus, everything is going to go our way. And we think that he's going to come and that he's going to perform miracles and perfect our life right away. And like Peter, he said, after you have suffered a while, you will be established and you can go back and strengthen your brethren. So suffering, if you suffer with Christ, you will also reign with him. And so I think about that in my life, how, and maybe you can identify with that. Following Christ has not been, I've learned to follow him even when it has been difficult and it feels like he's let me down. The disciples had to make a decision after he died, and it didn't go the way they thought it would, but he was still Christ, the Lord. He came to rule in another way than they assumed, and often things turn out different than we assume, and that God was going to handle them. and we feel disappointed and let down. And so I've learned to follow him when it feels like he's let me down, to the other side of that. And it reminds me of Acts when he said, go wait in the upper room until you're endued with power from on high. So when we continue to follow Jesus, even when we feel like he's let us down, or we feel disappointed, or God, I thought you were going to come and do all of this, and even he is working through you to heal or to deliver or to speak to others, but it's not, your life is going through problems and troubles. And it's like, Jesus, what's up with that? But if we keep following him, there is a light on the other side. There is hope on the other side. There is being endued with power on the other side. There is the day of Pentecost. There is hope. There is new beginnings on the other side. There is a new season on the other side of continuing to follow him. It's almost like when he said to his disciples, will you follow me? To the crowd, will you follow me or will you leave me like everyone else left me when they didn't get what they thought he was, or when he offended them with the way he talked about his flesh and blood being something that they would have to eat or consume in order to take part in him. And people said, that's gross. What are you talking about? They didn't get the spiritual lesson he was trying to put out there, right? And so God calls us to follow him when we don't understand him, when we can't trace him. And if we do, there's rewards and blessings on the other side of that. And so I've learned that again. And some of these lessons, again, are not things that I haven't learned, but I think we learn these lessons deeper and in new ways. We learn biblical truths and principles in new ways as they apply to the different seasons of our lives. These lessons are different than they were for me when I was in my late 20s after I got saved, or my 30s or my 40s, than they are now in my 50s as an empty nester. And so another thing that I learned, I think I'm on number 5 or 4. Oh, we cannot follow Jesus and hold on to what we want for too long. We'll have to choose between God's will and ours. So we'll have to decide what to do. And I guess that goes back to, I think it was number 1. It has to be, sometimes we want things and we can't follow. I can't do my will and God's will. I can't, unless the two coincide, unless the two meet and agree and find unity. And so we have to choose. And so I've had to make choices. And so will you. I want to go on to another one. Following Jesus sometimes means sitting in the messy middle of things and waiting on him to show us a path forward. When we're following Jesus, we're letting him lead the way. And this year I wanted to move ahead of God and get ahead of his timing. And I've had to sit and wait for him. And then he suddenly has given me direction. Following Jesus also means that when we continue to follow him into a new season and we don't know what it looks like, but we trust him, then he opens up new doors for us. He surprises us with new blessings, new purpose, and new lessons when an assignment has ended. He opens up the way to new assignments for us. And so that's been so wonderful to see the new things that God is doing in this season of my life and all that 2024 brought to me. Some things I cannot talk about, but what I can say is I'm doing the Called Conference again. I did it last in 2021 and I'll be doing it again in 2025. So 3-year gap in between doing the Called Conference. He gave me the date, February 1st. He gave me the the date, and he gave me the title, I Will Follow. And so I've been focusing on that a lot, and how he has called me and called us all to follow him. And so this is really something that the Lord does. He calls us back to things. He called me to write for the Bible app and do devotionals in this season, and they have done really well, and that opened up more doors to write books and things that I'll talk about in maybe the next video. But yeah, when we follow God, even when we don't know what is next, he brings the beauty, blessings, purpose, and lessons. He honors our obedience. He honors our submission. I want to talk about something else. Even when we get off track, God is able to get us back on track. He's just a prayer away. And I think of that because I left my former church in 2021. I stepped down from ministry, or I like to say, like, one of my spiritual mothers stepped away. It was just a season that I knew it was time for me to go for different reasons. And I knew what church I was going to because I just wanted to be in church. I was praying about what church to go to. And that happened at the end of 2021. And the Lord allowed me to go. And then I started to question, was I supposed to go? But I stayed the course because I had already gone. And I didn't feel like I was supposed to go back. But I had been so conditioned to be there and to feel like something I was doing was wrong. Maybe I'll make a video about this. Let me know if you've gotten this far and you want me to make a video about it. I was so conditioned to think that if I left, it was wrong. But what I found is that the Lord met me in my uncertainty, in my questioning, if I had done the right thing. He surrounded me with a community of beautiful women. Not that the women that I left weren't wonderful women of God, godly women that I learned from in that season, and many I'm still connected to. But it was time for me to go, and I didn't go to for ministry. I went and I let go of everything. But God has a way. He put me back into leading prayer and leading women's ministry at my new church. And I didn't ask for that, but God opened up the way for me to do that. Your gifts truly will make room for you and bring you before great men. Even my writing gift. I mean, I hadn't planned these things. I just wanted a season of rest. I wanted a season to rebuild and restore my soul of going through things in my personal life. And I wanted to just go sit in the back of the church and be restored. And God has done so much in this, even in my questioning. So I learned that, and I guess I learned that not just in 2024, but throughout this time that I have transitioned, that God meets us. And when we feel like we get off track, and when we feel like we messed up, or maybe we've made a wrong turn or something, God meets us and he calls us to follow him forward. And so I want to go on to something else that I learned. Even though we're called to be ministers of reconciliation, it's not always possible to reconcile, but we can learn to live at peace and be at peace with everyone as much as is possible within us. We won't always be able to restore and rekindle relationships. People come into your life for a reason and a season, and sometimes we think it's going to be a lifetime, and it's not. So we have to learn to let go. So I'm going to go on to the next one, which means following Jesus means different things at different things in different seasons. Sometimes moving forward means going backward or returning to an old place to end a chapter correctly, to seal it, to get what you need so that you can move forward. And I won't go into much detail, but returning. God called me last year to do a lot of returning to different places, not permanently, just to go places that I had left, places I hadn't been, to return, to repent. And I think if you watch my channel for any time, you will know that that was the word the Lord gave me last year, was the word return. And so I did a lot of returning and going back. And I didn't know what God was going to do. But sometimes I think of Ruth and Naomi. Naomi moved forward when her season was over. But when she moved forward, part of her moving forward was returning to Bethlehem, where she started at. But then God did something there. He did a new thing there. And sometimes God will call you to return. So it's not always bad to go back. If God is calling you to go back, maybe it's a new season to return and do something different. But then sometimes he'll call you, like me, to return just for a purpose and for a short spell, or to do something, to close something so that you can move on. And so I learned that it doesn't always bring reconciliation, and going forward sometimes means returning to a past person, place, or thing to finish something. I think I've said this one. When we go without knowing where God is leading us, when we're following Jesus down paths we don't understand, if we will be faithful to follow him, we will always end up where we're supposed to be. And right now, I feel like I am where I am supposed to be. I feel like I am, this season looks different for me than the last season. Church looks different for me. Fellowship looks different for me. And but I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I'm thankful for that. Life looks different for me. I thought by now I would have quit my job and been in ministry full time, but I'm where I'm supposed to be in my job, doing the work that I do there that matters. And God has blessed me and honored me to be there in a different capacity than the last season. And I've been at my job for 26 years, but sometimes, like I said, following Jesus means staying where you are and waiting for him to give you the next instruction, direction, or correction. And I learned that community is so important. I don't know if I said that, but I learned that community is an important part of following Jesus. And I learned how to embrace friendship, I guess, because for so long being in ministry, I had people that I did ministry with that we were sisters in Christ, but not really friends, I guess I would say. We were. So I think it's more important to be sisters and brothers in the Lord than to look for a clique or try and be friends. But sometimes we need that. We need community. We need sister friends. We need girlfriends. We need people. And I was so solo, and I didn't realize that I was hadn't made any friends of my own until my kids left, because I was so involved in ministry and work and speaking and writing and doing things with and for my kids that I didn't have any time of my own. And so when I had all this free time, I'm like, wow, I don't have any really good friendships. All the friendships I had when I was younger, either we started going separate ways because I became radically saved and started following Christ, or I just didn't keep up with those friendships because I was busy in the life that I was creating. And I think we all go through that as adults, but as an empty nester in midlife, I'm like, okay, I need some friends here. I don't have a hubby. Even if I had a hubby, I would need friends, right? And so it's been really nice to be in community and to cultivate friendships and beginning stages, but really great godly women from different walks of life and different backgrounds. And I just really appreciate that. And so in a new season, making new friends as a 50-something-year-old has been interesting, but I learned that it's still possible, yeah, to meet new friends and to meet godly women and to connect with them. And so those are some lessons that I learned. So let me see if I can put them all in just really quickly. I've talked them out. Following Jesus is easier said than done. Jesus is the peace in the middle of our storms. Following Jesus does not guarantee a perfect life free of trouble. We can still follow Jesus when it feels like he let us down. It's not easy, but if we follow him, there's rewards on the other side. We can't follow Jesus and hold on to things that don't align with his will. Following Jesus means sitting in the messy middle sometimes and waiting on him to show us the path forward. When we go without knowing, God rewards us following him. And we end up where we're supposed to be. When we get off track, when we question what we've done and the decisions that we've made and the path that we've taken, Jesus is not far ahead when we lag behind, when we think we're lagging behind. He's just a prayer away, and he can redeem the time. Sometimes following Jesus means going backward and not forward to return to old places and old things. Even though we're called to be ministers of reconciliation, it's not always possible to reconcile with people. But we can live at peace with everyone as much as is possible with us. I hope this bless you. Let me know if any of these lessons that I learned or that I had to live out, let me put it that way. I had to live these lessons out in 2024. If they resonate with you, and what was the biggest lesson that you learned? I think all of these were big lessons for me. But two of the biggest was I need community. And in all my questioning, if I made the right decision, stepping away, moving on, I found God met me on my path, and I'm right where I need to be. So God bless you until next time, and I hope this blesses you. Let me know if you'd like to know more about moving on from a beloved church or community after being there for so long. If you want me to talk about that, I'll do that and share a little bit of my story. I haven't done that yet, but I will do that if you guys want to hear about that. Okay, God bless you until next time.